Hi again. So now we're going to, this is the last panel of the day before we actually have some fun also. We're doing some heavy networking and enjoying the evening show after this. So on this panel we have Michael Kurtz on my left. We have Joseph Zhang of Greenwood Asset Management, he spoke just earlier. We have Zhang from Huachuang Securities, Chief Financial Analyst. We have Jason Ma and Haicheng. So instead of me talking about each one of them, it would be great if they can just introduce themselves in maybe 60 seconds, and then we'll move on because this panel is a little bit larger. We will move on and talk about some issues that are related to this panel. So perhaps we can start with Michael. Just introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to join the panel. I work as the investment strategist for a long-short equity hedge fund based in Hong Kong called Raise Capital. Raise is notionally benchmarked against the MSCI Asia Pacific ex-Japan Index, which means we're principally focused on the economies and the equity markets of Asia. But we have a very specific focus on China in particular. In fact, on any given month, perhaps up to 45% of our portfolio will be invested both in China A shares as well as in the H shares listed in Hong Kong and the ADRs listed in the US.
Great. Joseph?
I'm Joseph. I'm the partner in charge of the Hong Kong company of Greenwood Asset Management. We're one of the largest China alternative managers, managing over $10 billion across long-short funds and long-only funds.
Zhang, please.
Zhang from the Huachuang Securities. I'm the chief macroeconomy researcher in charge of the macro studies.
Hello, this is Jason from Russell Investments. Basically, we're helping this sophisticated institutional investor to design solutions and through mom and pop kind of like solutions. So basically, we have a long history in China here. We have the JV with Peng Yang before, and now we have our UOB set up in Shanghai. So basically, we're quite committed to the China market, trying to provide the solutions to the onshore clients as well.
Hi everybody, my name is Haicheng. I'm the manager director of the international business of Sensegain Asset Management firm. Our firm is a Beijing-based private equity firm with offices in New York, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. We manage funds for big banks, insurance companies, local governments, and our AUM is over $4 billion and we invest in new economy areas such as new technology, new consumption, new healthcare, and new finance. Very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll start with Haicheng. He is a PE expert. So we'd like to learn what role VC and PE obviously plays in the Chinese capital markets. Chinese capital markets is developing, and we'd like to know if you can share with the audience the progression. What's the path in the future?
From my view, I think the Chinese capital market will be very optimistic in the next 5 or 10 years. And as we all know that the capital market is a place where financial resources are allocated in the most effective way. And the mission of the venture capital and the private equity is they are smart money because they are using their best to find or discover the best entrepreneurs or companies in the world and provide financial service to them and then get investment return for their investors or LPs. So I think the venture capital and the private equity will play a very important role in the development of the Chinese capital market development. I give example. As we all know that China has launched the Science and Innovation Board recently, and for the first batch of companies listed, there are 25, and 92% of those companies are supported by venture capital or private equity. So I believe that the venture capital and the private equity will play a very big role in the Chinese capital markets development.
Great. Thank you very much. Jason, MSCI has kind of recently increased the shares from 1% to 3%. So how do you see the flow of foreign money coming in, and how is, talk about correlations and in terms of portfolio construction?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the secondary market, right? Like the previous panel discussing about the MSCI and all the opportunities, how we see that from a foreign managers, because we're talking to a lot of foreign asset owners. So basically, if you look at China A-shares market, it's an inefficient market. So basically, there's a lot of alpha to harvest. So that's why I think that's a very important thing, because if you think about the passive versus active, which is very hot topics in the global markets, if we think about in the developed markets, definitely passive is being used quite a lot, and it's being there's quite a strong inflow into the passive investment. However, in China, it's not the same thing. It's not only because of people are not really being educated about this concept. It's really because China market, there's a lot of alpha for these active managers to harvest. And so this, when we talk to the foreign asset owners, this is the thing that we always mention to them. Because when you are investing to the China market, you don't just want the beta, you want the alpha. So that's why one thing about that. A second thing is definitely, if you think about the alpha, the correlation with all the major markets is quite low. So it's not like something, if you are investing into the US market and Japanese market, correlation maybe 0.8, 0.9 something, right? So the alpha is quite idiosyncratic in China. So the average, maybe the correlation is below 0.5 to all the major equity markets. That's why it's very attractive to those foreign investors. So with these two concepts, if you think about how you choose your investment channel or instrument on the onshore markets, definitely we think the active managers is the way for the foreign asset owners to choose to think about, because you have the alpha alternative, which is idiosyncratic, and we can see that in China actually the capability for those active managers, if you choose the top managers, they can really deliver the returns. That's why we think the three things is when the foreign institutional investors, when they consider about the China market, we will communicate with them about this, and also this is why it's quite interesting and attractive to them. Yeah.
Great. If I can ask you in continuation, because you're also fund of hedge funds expert, if you can discuss a little bit the difference between analyzing managers onshore and offshore, in terms of philosophy.
All right. So I think it's a very interesting question. I think it's also related to the previous panels when we're thinking about the onshore managers versus the offshore managers, and how the onshore managers can harvest the opportunities of the MSCI inclusion, because that means you need to think about how foreign investors think about it. It's not like the onshore investors or retail investors thinking it's very short-term, return-driven or something. But for the foreign investors, like the risk control, systematic, is very important, because they're not looking for very high double-digit return. They're looking for sustainable return. So that's why I think for the onshore managers, if you think about, they're all very good storytellers. So if you think about, they are very good talking about their investment philosophies, but when they explain their investment process, or say their risk management process to foreign asset owners or foreign investors, this is their weakness. wow, this is very strong for those foreign players because they know what those institutional investors are looking for. And this is exactly they're looking for, so they're strong at this. So I think it's because of the different stage of the capital market. So that's why we see the onshore manager and offshore manager, their emphasis on different things. But I think it's very important for both of them to know if the foreign managers want to tap more into the China onshore markets, they need to understand the Chinese investors' logic, right? What they are looking for. But for the onshore managers, when they want to get more opportunities from the overseas investors, they need to build out or enhance their capability. It's not really about their investment philosophy or something, or more about the system, the control, to be more systematic, which I think is more important to them.
Yeah, sure. Zhang, you're an expert in global capital markets. Can you tell us, share with us future of the Chinese economy within the context of the global economy, and also discuss a little bit about how do you see volatility kind of diminishing because of China is getting more mature, and the wild card now is more maybe in the West than in the East. It used to be East, right? Now the wild card could be in the West side, meaning there is lots of things going on with Europe, right? And also uncertainty about U.S. elections, etc.
Thank you. Sorry, I will start my part in Chinese. 因为我说英文语速可能会比我中文明显慢很多，因为大家对我时间有限制，可能这样信息量会更大一点。我先说两个维度，可能第一个维度也刚才 Vidak 说的这个问题，怎么思考中西方现在大的格局的变化？就我们自己是做宏观研究的，我们倾向于认为，如果从长期的一个维度来看，15年、16年以来这几年，我们看到全球发生了各种各样的事情。如果非要让我们在一个框架中去理解的话，我更倾向于理解成，其实全球从3个不同的维度，一直不管几百年、几千年，永恒的都有3个主题在选择。从最高的就是全球治理、国际关系框架中是合作还是对抗，这是第一个维度，这是第一个天平，也叫第一个维度。第二个维度和天平呢，其实是在整个价值观的取向上是效率还是公平。第3个所谓的维度和天平，其实应该叫做是在收入分配层面，到底是更倾向于资本 capital 还是更倾向于劳动力，也就是所谓的这个劳动力资本的分配上，是更倾向于人还是资本？这3个天平，我们能感觉到，在80年代之后，以美国为首新自由主义发展以来，过去30年，很明显我们在3个天平里面选择了效率优先、资本优先以及合作优先。这是跟全球化进展，包括金融自由化，包括这个金融市场的大幅发展，包括跨国公司的高度发展，这都是高度一致的。这个背后在理解这个变化之下，相当于用这样的一个方式再去理解我们中国也好，美国也好，包括欧洲也好。因为欧洲为什么脱欧，美国为什么要跟中国产生一定的贸易摩擦，都是因为各个国家其实在这样的背景之下，3个天平就会形成一个在国家层面的人格分裂。也就是说，每个国家会有2个群体，第一个群体是代表偏向于全球化受益方的代表。各个国家的，就是像美国的 Wall Street， 包括中国的金融街，就是以金融领域跨国企业是深深的受益于刚才我讲的效率优先、资本优先、合作优先、全球化这样的背景之下的。这部分是全球化人格，还有一部分是本土化人格，就是本身它的财富和收入来源并不能通过全球化进行受益的。我的资产配置也很难突破国界去做真正的全球化资产配置。这一部分型的本土人格的代表，就是以本土的制造业以及中低端低层的纯粹靠劳动力报酬在活着的这些工人和一些底层人民。这2种分裂，在刚才讲的3个天平的选择下，很明显出现了过去30年所有的收益分配都会更倾向于我们看到的全球化人格。但是呢，由于各个国家的收入在国内的收入2次分配机制没有做好，所以能看到全球化人格在国内并没有把它获得的超额收益以很好的方式2次分配给国内型人格，所以这种人格之间的对抗，所谓的人格分裂形成了，那就必然会产生一个诉求，就是底层民众的不满。这个配合的一个客观数据我们已经看到了，就是中国、美国各个国家都一样，整个的这个收入差距分化 这已经是个客观事实。这个数据在今天最早的一个论坛，万哲博士已经讲过这个数据，我们就不赘述了。收入分化其实就是讲过，因为收入分配没有做好，这个背景之下，底层民众才会有他的政治诉求，政治诉求的往上的一个上溢。最终我们看到这样的一个格局的变化，它必然有两个选择，要不然把矛头针对性、全球性人格，我要求占领华尔街。包括在国内，我们看到很多金融机构也有很多示威啊，我要求你给我刚兑，其实本质是一个意思，就是说我要求你给我补偿我的收益，或者呢，我们一起找一个假想敌，或者把这种矛盾外移。那我们很显然觉得目前倾向于选择了后者，这是为什么可能各个国家现在的方式都倾向于把这种矛盾再进行外移化。因为在这种人格分裂之下，也能理解为什么这一次中美出现摩擦。之前最初的视角站在我们国内，我们第一个想法都是，因为中美之间的经济压舱石，那么美方的一些跨国企业肯定第一时间会站在我们这边，形成一股力量。但是这一次能看到，在中美相关摩擦当中，其实美国内部应该是各个阶层形成了比较高的共识。原因就在于，如果它不形成这样的共识对外的话，这个共识就是针对它啊。那么我个人观点，纯个人观点，我倾向于认为这几年我们回数过去3、4年发展的情况来看，这个3个天平都同时在向另外一个方向在进行偏转了。如果我们在想各个国家做的事情，首先从合作，再往对抗和博弈的这个方向再有一个调整，有一个微调。我们不敢说现在是全面对抗，但是至少是这个方向上有一个微调。第二个天平，在效率还是公平上，各国都在治理这个问题，都是在慢慢往公平上在做一些微调和调整。因为这种不同收入阶层之间的对抗和这种不同的情绪的这种不满已经比较强劲了。第三个天平就是从资本和人力上，这个可能对于我们金融市场格外重要。如果我们看美国的数据会看得更清楚一些，就过去30年，美国的 GDP 当中收入份额，其实整个劳动力报酬的占名义 GDP 的收入份额下降，30年下降9个点。然后这9个点去哪儿了？全部去了整个的经营者盈余。经营者净盈余就是资本嘛，就是公司的盈利嘛，全都去了资本公司盈利基本上占名义 GDP 占比提升了大概8到9个点。所以这就是整个已经这个过去整个的收益分配是高度向资本倾斜的。那么这个也是在当下向劳动力再次倾斜。我们回归国内，这个我们国内看到了很多脱虚向实是一个意思。然后这个大背景之下，怎么理解中国国内的经济的变化，以及我们现在的国内经济的一个走势，包括刚才魏总提到的和中西方的一些比较来看，在国内经济里面，我们可能提示一点，如果非要用一句话来对比中西方经济的话，我更倾向于用的一个8个字叫东方应该是见稳的，但是西方是愈变。东方的见稳指的是中国经济在这一轮，我们指的是就是过去1年多去杠杆啊，包括我们受到了一定的这样的一些金融监管新规造成下的一个经济的一个下滑，应该最快斜率下降的那部分已经过去了。今年下半年叫见稳嘛，东方见稳，就是中国的经济应该是在今年下半年应该是能明确找到一个底部的，能会止跌。所以其实我们经济的整个的下行的最快一部分的斜率已经过去了。反观整个，如果从波动性角度来讲的话，我更认为波动性是从西向东的一个蔓延方向。反观今年下半年，我们看西方是愈变，就是要变。那么这个变体现多种，也是金融市场我们讨论了半年多的问题。美元指数这个位置上已经是一个比较强的一个像是一个极值位，那么是否会掉头下转，配合着美国货币的转向？第一个，美元会拐点，这是一个波动性。第二个，我们看到 Fed 美联储的货币政策的变化。我们的从金融市场上的视角更倾向于，其实角度上讲，美联储这一次货币政策转向，我们倾向于认为是有一点着急和急切的，因为金融市场没有发生特别大的恶化，同时经济当期没有恶化，只是预期恶化。同时呢，这一次也是距离最近的一次加息之后，应该是过去10、20年以来吧，间隔最短的一次就开始降息了，只间隔了7个月，之前是8个月和15个月。从3点来看，那这也是美联储很大的一个不确定性，特别是下半年它可能会重新设立一个利率走廊上限的工具，这是美联储货币政策框架的不确定性。第3个不确定性来自于，也很着急，欧洲也很急，英国也很急，英国急着要脱欧，欧洲这边有急着这样的一个政治氛围的变化，这个英国急着要脱欧非常急切，美国这边急着降息。然后我们看到各种资产价格，无论是美股还是美元指数，大家都觉得到了一定的极值位，这个资产价格的方向着急着做决定。以上的着急也就映射着这个变。 所以倾向于下半年来说，我们倾向于整个波动性其实应该是从西向东蔓延的。国内的宏观经济，下行压力依然存在。如果不考虑中美贸易摩擦的进一步深化影响，我们指的是还有其他的动作。如果当下这种情景去分析的话，那么今明2年可能经济增速会维持在6.1到6.2这个区间，就 GDP 6.1到6.2这个区间当中。从这个角度来说的话，已经没有进一步失速向下的风险了。如果非要说落到资产的投资上，我可能再大概花3到4分钟讲一个很小的点，就是，很多人会类比说，因为中国经济还有下行压力，所以中国的利率一定是大牛市，就是很简单的逻辑，这就利率一定广谱利率下降。我们只提一个感觉，就是美国这方面就是数据定价上会非常市场化。美国我们做研究会发现，过去50年有非常标准的3数合一。美国50年的平均名义 GDP 增速，美国50年10年期国债利率，美国50年标普500年平均涨幅都是6.8%到7.2%之间。这个3数合一就印证了它的资本市场的定价是相当充分的，对利率很明显的充分的表达了它的边际资本回报率和边际融资成本一个很好的一个传递，所以是这样的一个市场。国内我们觉得中国市场可能不能简单的像类比美国这样的分析范式。中国我们的资金的持有方跟美国是高度不一样的，美国的国债大概银行只持有6%不到，但是我们中国的国债银行持有66%。这就是为什么我们的资管新规和我们的银行的资付结构以及相对的融资情况会这么影响我们的国内利率。所以其实中国的利率本质上我觉得应该是相对于我们的银行的这种资金供需会是决定无风险利率最根本原因。经济是一个重要的因素了，它在里面，因为它是间接影响到银行的信贷扣不扣得出去，进而影响到银行有没有额外的钱去投债券，它是这样的一个逻辑。但是最根本的可能还是摆脱不了我们现在大的在金融机构做供给侧改革，特别是很多金融机构在去杠杆，金融机构在做深化的过程当中，这个可能会是比简单的经济更有影响利率的一个重要因素。所以今年下半年国内宏观经济如果没有出现变化，我们可能认为有这样一点，现在市场是一个忽视的因素，就是中国的非标转标。如果2020年年底资管新规那个口径没有发生变化的话，今年下半年可能会看到中国大部分机构会着急把非标资产转成标准化资产，那就等于是说，对于利率来说，无风险利率其实会受到追捧，还有一部分超配力量能引导它下行，同时广谱利率应该是上升的，也就是说信用溢价可能会被打开。所以真正的一个大的范围，我们认为波动性从西向东来，然后内部的资产来说是无风险利率和信用溢价走货同时发生的一个状况。对，以上可能就是我们这边对于怎么理解全球中美的变化，怎么理解现在的资产配置的相对来说中国和外面不一样的独特的逻辑的一些看法。谢谢 ，Thank you。
谢谢。
Joseph, let's discuss A shares, H shares from point of view from you, hedge fund point of view. Why still better maybe to invest in Hong Kong shares, or maybe not better? We'd like to get in-depth analysis from you.
It's a very good question because, as we know, Greater China equities include A shares, Hong Kong, and US listed ADRs. We have been active investing across these three markets since 2004. Less in A shares until 2013-14. And based on our experience, we believe the Hong Kong listed H shares, red chips, tend to have better corporate governance than the A share market broadly. And US listed Chinese companies have, at least before the recent Tech and Innovation Board has been launched in China, the ADRs market tends to accommodate companies with new industry, new business models. So we think the three markets are integrated to each other. In terms of valuation, we still see Hong Kong market as very attractive in terms of the quality relative to the valuation. The challenge with A share market is it's very mixed. Some high quality companies are mixed with a lot of companies with lower quality in terms of the corporate governance as well as potentially the fraud risk. So we have seen recently more and more companies with the fraud issues are being exposed in the A-share market. In the short term, it's negative, but we think this is very, very important for the long term. Only after the bubbles in the market are squeezed and after bad companies in the markets are kicked out from the market, then the market can be healthier than before. So for this reason, we have seen the Hong Kong market tends to be healthier because short sellers can do short sellings in the Hong Kong market and of course in the US market too by attacking companies with at least aggressive accounting numbers or overvaluation. So this can help the valuation in the Hong Kong market tends to be lower compared with companies with similar quality or even lower quality companies in the A-share market. I'm not denying the attraction of the A-share market. You know, a lot of speakers talk about the MSCI inclusion, the assets allocation switch from real estate market to the equity market. These are all happening. But still, quality and also whether the valuation is fair or overvalued or undervalued, these are key considerations for long-short managers like us. And also we think the ADR market, we have seen some precedents that some ADR companies, they delisted in the ADR market and be relisted in the A-share market, such as 360, such as Focus Media, such as Mindray. Their market cap and valuation have all been better in the local A-share market. We will argue this is good news for the listed companies and early stage investors. But for buy-side guys like us, we should ask ourselves, in which market you can realize a higher return? Is a market with higher valuation or a market with lower valuation? So we always ask ourselves this question.
Thank you, Joseph. Michael, let's continue on this topic on A-shares, but from a different angle. It seems to me that the market is still very much based on not wholesale, not institutional money, but retail money. And so how do you see that progression? And also since the inclusion of MSCI from 1% to 3%, which is triple, how do you see the shareholders' value to be worked out in the long term? What are the benefits here?
Yeah, great question, because if we look at the valuation on the A-share market, today as a multiple of earnings, it's trading at about 11 times forward earnings market-wide. Compare that to the S&P, which I think is right now trading at very near 17 times. Yet, the A-share index, if you look at the consensus earnings growth, is currently about 14% earnings. So it's trading at less than a 1 times PE to growth ratio. The consensus earnings on the S&P 500 is a little over 7% only, meaning that it's trading at more than 2 times PE to growth. Why is it then that the growth, which is stronger in the A-share space, is being accorded such a relatively modest multiple? And I think we may be able to attribute some of that to the still incomplete process of developing a more present and fully matured institutional investor base in China, whether that be the domestic institutions, some of whom we heard from today and who are clearly very sophisticated in their approach to the market, or whether it be the foreign institutional players in the A-share space. And I very much agree with one of the speakers in the previous panel who talked about the potential transformative impact of the ongoing increase in the MSCI weighting of A-shares in its global indexes. He mentioned a 4 trillion renminbi number. That's over the longer period, of course, as the inclusion factor, what they call the inclusion factor, will continue to rise. In the very near term, it's probably more like 120 to 140 billion US dollars. But if we put those numbers into context, This is so let's say the 4 trillion over a period of years. In US dollar terms, we would then be talking about, say, 600 billion. This is a market that even on a slow day is trading perhaps 50 billion US dollars. And on some days earlier this year was trading upwards of, say, $120 billion a day. So if we think only in terms of the amount of capital, I think, in fact, the impact looks fairly modest. An impact that can be measured in just a single-digit number of days of turnover in the market over a period of perhaps several years. But let's think not so much in purely quantitative terms as in qualitative terms. And here I think the potential for transformation is really quite a bit greater. As you say, Vidak, the market is still today relatively dominated by retail investors. 80 to 85% of the turnover on the Shanghai market is retail driven. And the retail investor typically responds more to what we might think of as more short-term signals or short-term stimulus in the market. So it will be, whether a company had strong sales figures last month or last quarter, or whether they're guiding for a strong sales number. Perhaps they're looking at, say, the market share dominance of one company versus another. Whereas the institutional investor, whether it's the local institution or the foreign institution, is going to look more at sort of longer-term drivers of shareholder value. So this will be things like cash flow generation. This will be dividend payout ratios. This will be return on equity, ROE. Or if they're looking at earnings, it's going to be something more like earnings sustainability, earnings visibility, earnings stability. And as the institutional investor and foreign institutional investor participation in the market rises, then not only will they be putting more emphasis on those factors, but they'll be insisting that Chinese company managements, begin to put more emphasis on meeting those sorts of expectations. And as they do, that would then create the environment for a re-rating of equity multiples on the A-share space over time to levels that are perhaps more consistent with what we see in the developed markets.
Excellent. Very nice analysis. So you're seeing revaluation of the A-shares based on these factors just mentioned. Haicheng, can you discuss, since this is public market, you're private market, can you discuss some differences and what repercussions are we getting from this MSCI inclusion, in your opinion, as it goes and reflects to your to private equities?
Well, I think Michael and Mr. Zhang has talked about the quality, the valuation of A-shares companies just now. I totally agree with them. But from another perspective, let's think about the capital markets here in China's broad picture. I think the capital markets will play a very big picture in the Chinese economic structure space. If we look at from this perspective, the quality, the valuation, and the investor structure is not that the big problem. The big problem is how the capital market will play in the economic structure shift. I say this from 4 perspectives. The first perspective is about the economic mode change, because China is now changing itself from the export and investment-driven mode to consumption and high-tech driven mode. Previously, those traditional industries like real estate, infrastructure, they got financed from indirect finance, as panelists have talked about many times. But I think the consumption-driven or the high-tech driven companies, they cannot get financed from indirect financing because they don't have hard assets that the Chinese banks or Chinese shadow banks require. So I think the capital markets will come into play in helping them to get financing and to grow bigger. So this is the first perspective that I think why the Chinese capital market will play a big role. The second perspective is about the government policy. Because as previous panelists has said that the Chinese government seems 2015 have implemented deleverage policy with the aim of reducing the macro leverage ratio and increasing the percentage of direct financing, because the latest data shows that at the end of the last quarter, the macro leverage ratio of China's is about 250 of GDP, and the corporate sector is about 160% of GDP. This is a very high number, and this high leverage ratio have risked Chinese economic growth and the financial market stability. So the Chinese government is trying their best to deleverage its ratio. And from another angle is that the equity financing of the Chinese market is only about less than 5%, and the number of last year is only 1.87%. It's very low compared to the counterpart in the U.S. and in the rest of the world. So from the government angle, the Chinese government will provide enough policy bullets to boost the market. This is the second perspective. I think the third perspective is about the successful learning perspective, because the U.S. capital market has been very strongly supportive in the economic development, especially for the new economy, and we have seen that the U.S. capital market have fosters a lot of giant companies like Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, things like that. And however, in the last 1 or 2 decades, China has lost very good companies, because things like Alibaba, Tencent, they go in abroad for listing. So the Chinese government has learned lessons from this process, and they have taken measures to implement new market rules, especially the registration-based stock issuance regime. So I think they have do a lot of things in this regard. And the last perspective is the liquidity preference trend. I think the China Central Bank have maintained its monetary policy as sound, but actually a little bit active from my point of view. If you look at the interbank interest rate, this means we have seen the lowest in the history. So the liquidity, in my opinion, will be very sufficient, probably in 3 or 5 years. So such liquidity will have a place to go. So where they will go, the real estate sector, I don't think so, because those sectors are too big. The Chinese government has imposed policies to freeze this real estate sector. So they won't. I don't think the money will go to the real estate sector again. So they will find a new place to go to make money. So the property market, the capital market probably will be the next place they will go. So from the 4 perspectives, I do believe that the Chinese capital markets have a very bright future. So
Sure, thank
this
you.
is my opinion from the long term, not the short term.
So it's broadening up. Yeah, it's fantastic. Jason, we have 2 gentlemen here, and they're both managing offshore funds, Chinese, Greater China, I would say, funds, but offshore. Tell us about operational due diligence, the difference between when you conduct operational due diligence and onshore funds, China's domestic funds, and offshore. What are the difference? What are the things that you're looking for?
Okay, so basically I think for no matter it's like foreign institutional investors or like us, the MOM managers, basically the concept is the same, because we're looking for those investors or those managers who has the same quality. Because we need, just one thing is definitely is the investment return, but we need it to be stable, right? So the operational things is the same. So what we observed here is that for many years ago, when those QFII investors invest into China, there's two options, right? You have the mutual fund house, you also have the private fund management house. So I think at that time, we are not really like kind of way that mutual fund house because of the turnovers is very high. You know, those PMs, when they become star PMs, they want to set up their own companies, and their style is drifting away. So it's very not stable. So it's not really good for those long-term investors in a way. But at that time, the key question for them is that although their investment styles may be not stable, the key person issue is very high, but they have a quite standard operational system, right? Because most of them are SOE, and it's quite they have quite a amount of money invested into that, and the regulations is very tight to this mutual fund house actually. So although from the investment perspective, you may think the private fund house is better, but at that time they're not catching up with all those operations. But we do observe the trend is because of all the foreign investors looking at China onshore markets, no matter it's the MSI inclusion or even before that, because of all these QFII investors, when they're looking at them, and we observe that all those private markets managers is actually catching up. And if you look at those top tier private markets managers, they're actually quite institutional wise nowadays. So in short, I think from us, the standard is the same because the client's needs is the same. They want the money is safe. Because if you think about it nowadays, the risk is a lot of perspective, market risk, operational risk, legal compliance risk. All this risk is very important to the outcome. So what we look at, the standard is the same, and what we observed is that actually the China onshore managers, they're catching up, and we noticed that the regulators actually pay attention to them. They're emphasizing that even for the private market managers, they're trying to push them to a higher standards in terms of the operation, risk management. So I think for that is what we observed in the China market, and that's how they are catching up with the foreign investors. And I think that's also kind of the result or the effect because of the foreign investors investing in China. It's more opening up. So that's actually changed some of the nature or the industry landscape. So yeah.
Great, thank you so much. For the remaining panelists, Zhang, Joseph, and Michael, if you could just give us concluding remarks on these deepening of capital markets in China, just like 60 seconds. So we'll start with you, Zhang, in English.
I also think in the long run, the best asset in China, it should be the equity, and the second is the fixed income, and the third one is the house. The last one is some others alternative investment and other maybe some value gold. So I think the reason why I ranking this asset in this order is because in the long run, we have to admit that China will not, first of all, the household. I think I should stand my part in Chinese.
Sure, go ahead. I was kidding, but thank you so much.
我在想，中国是土地城镇化，就是刚才讲这个词。其实我还想说，从长期来看，如果作为一个长期的判断，我对中国资产是这样的排序啊。这个排序背后的逻辑，如果只有60秒的话，可能就分3点吧。第一点，过去20年单纯的是土地城镇化，未来10年是城镇人口真正人的城镇化。这就意味着中国的需求市场会从现在的6.8亿人到几年之后的10亿人。6.8亿人的需求市场和10亿人的需求市场，这对权益市场和对中国所有的需求的和大的权益市场来说，完全不是一个概念。第二个点呢，就是从过去20年的我们这种土地城镇化，就意味着一定会是房地产的这样的一个固定资产的一个高收益时代。 那么到了真正的人的城镇化的进程，消费提升也好，或者是这种城市群的概念之后，未来10年或10几年，可能最为重要的会转向以人力资本为核心的，偏向于教育、医疗也好，或者是科技也好。总之，地产可能就相对来说并不是那个时代的最主角的或最棒的那一个能让所有人获得无风险收益的那个资产了。然后第3点就是长周期来看，在全球偏博弈、没有特别大增量需求背景之下，这样的一个国际格局之下，我们也不用再过度希望于我们中国的政府，无论是财政还是货币政策，会做得特别短视的。我觉得我们当下的货币财政政策都会跟全球局势一样，会放到一个更长的空间视角去衡量，所以我们才看到这一次经济下行，中国无论财政还是货币，其实我们的政策的定力和政策的这种稳定性其实还是非常强的。这可能未必是一个当下的一个特殊，很可能未来也就是这样的一个更理性的这样的一个政策调控状态。
Thank you, Zhang.
Sorry.
It's great. Next time when I come, I'm taking an intensive Chinese course. Joseph, 60 seconds. The opportunities within this Chinese broadening or deepening of capital markets.
I think the deepening of the capital market in China are very important. We have seen the Hong Kong-Shanghai Connect happen 5 years ago. We actually hope it can be expanded. That's one. The other is the reason Huachuang Bank, the Tech and Innovation Board. We think the Tech and Innovation Board is very important because the start of registration-based IPOs. That's very important because the A-share market have been for a long time. The IPOs are subject to approval, as we all know. So it has not been a market-based approach. A lot of people blamed IPOs, saying, "Oh, too much IPOs, sucking money away from the market." We think actually a registration-based IPO system can make the A-share, low-quality A-share companies can be ousted gradually from the market. So we think it's a positive thing. Thirdly, we think the trade war is not necessarily a bad thing. It is a short-term challenge again, but for the long term, you make China open up and reform in a faster way. We have seen China open up the financial market because of after the trade war. We think on the tech side, China can also achieve more substantial achievement because of their pressure. Because China has to make a lot of things and do the local innovation and research locally in China. So it's a short-term challenge, but long-term it's really an opportunity. So what doesn't kill you make you stronger.
Thank you. And Michael, your concluding remarks, please.
Concluding remarks. I guess, first of all, everyone in the room is, in one fashion or another, involved in the process of telling the China story to global investors. And we do the same at Raise Capital. Our clients, our investors are both Chinese money, primarily located in Hong Kong, but also foreign investors, be they European family offices, US pension funds, etc. And in telling the China investment story to global investors, I think what I would emphasize as my concluding remark is the importance of us all getting the qualitative story correct rather than the quantitative story. Best example I can give is GDP growth, as simple a metric as that may be. When we try to market the fund to US investors, we still are asked these same old questions about, yeah, but isn't GDP slowing down? And what we have to constantly emphasize is that it's not really just the quantity of growth. Look how the quality of growth in China is improving. So the composition, much less driven or dependent on the export market, increasingly much more driven by the domestic consumer. Look at not just the composition, but the quality of growth, no longer as dependent on debt creation. So the incremental debt for incremental GDP growth is much lower today than it was 3 years ago. It's much less environmentally destructive than it was in the past. But these sort of nuances I find often don't make it into the sort of Western media story about Chinese growth and Chinese investment opportunity. And so I think from that perspective, my main takeaway or my main message today would be, let's all be sure to tell the Chinese growth story and the Chinese investment story to the rest of the world with a bit more sensitivity to the nuances about quality rather than just quantity.
Quality rather quantity, absolutely. Haicheng and Jason, same question, concluding remarks before we are going for evening entertainment.
Well, I think I've talked a lot about the capital markets in China. I think we should be very optimistic about the Chinese capital markets. So everybody will say that China will, I think we can use the word long China, including all the things about the Chinese economy, about the Chinese economy, about the Chinese equity markets. So that's safe.
Sure.
Okay, since I'm the last person between you and the dinner and the network, so I just make it short. I think it's really an opportunity for everyone, every participant in this market to learn. No matter it's the investors, they need to be more mature, more long-term in a way. For managers, understand how to serve or how to meet the long-term investors' perspective needs, right? And also from the regulators, everyone. It's really a great opportunity because of the opening up the capital market for everyone to be more mature, which is a good for China economy.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we're concluding today. We'll start tomorrow at 9:30. Now we're going to have in entertainment. Please, round of applause to the great panelists here. And we will see you shortly here. We have a little break now.